Cognitive psychology defined. Cognitive psychology is the study of how people perceive, learn, remember, and think about information. A cognitive psychologist might study how people perceive various shapes, why they remember some facts but forget others, or how they learn language. According to the American Psychological Association or APA, cognitive psychology is the study of higher mental processes such as attention, language use, memory, perception, problem solving, and thinking. As a scientific study of mind and mental functioning, the core focus of modern cognitive psychology is on studying how people acquire, process, and store information within the complex computing system known as the human brain. So therefore, cognitive psychologists are most concerned with studying how people think, perceive, remember, forget, solve problems, focus, and learn. Unlike the behavioral school of thought that focuses only on observable behaviors, cognitive psychology studies internal mental states and processes. The bottom line is that understanding cognitive psychology can help us understand much of what is going on in our everyday lives. Why study the history of cognitive psychology? If we know where we came from, we may have a better understanding of where we are heading. In addition, we can learn from past mistakes. In cognitive psychology, the ways of addressing fundamental issues have changed, but many of the fundamental questions remain much the same. Ultimately, cognitive psychologists hope to learn how people think by studying how people have thoughts about thinking. The progression of ideas often involves a dialectic. A dialectic is a developmental process where ideas evolve over time through a pattern of transformation. What is this pattern? In a dialectic, a thesis is proposed. A thesis is a statement of belief. For example, some people believe that human nature governs many aspects of human behavior. After a while, however, certain individuals notice apparent flaws in the thesis. An antithesis emerges. Eventually, or perhaps even quite soon, an antithesis emerges. It is a statement that counters a previous statement of belief. For example, an alternative view is that our nurture, or the environmental contexts in which we are reared, almost entirely determines many aspects of human behavior. A synthesis integrates the viewpoints. Sooner or later, the debate between the thesis and the antithesis leads to a synthesis. A synthesis integrates the most credible features of each of two or more views. For example, in the debate over nature versus nurture, the interaction between our innate or inborn nurture or nature and environmental nurture may govern human nature. The dialectic is important because we may be tempted to think that if one view is right, another seemingly contrasting view must be wrong. For example, in the field of intelligence, there has been a tendency to believe that intelligence is either all or mostly genetically determined, or else all or mostly environmentally determined. If a synthesis seems to advance our understanding of a subject, it then serves as a new thesis. A new antithesis then follows it, then a new synthesis, and so on. George Hegel observed this dialectical progression of ideas. He was a German philosopher who came to his ideas by his own dialectic. He synthesized some of his views or the views of his intellectual predecessors and contemporaries. You will see in this topic that psychology also evolved as a result of dialectics. Psychologists also had ideas about how the mind works and pursued their line of research. Then other psychologists pointed out weaknesses and developed alternatives as a reaction to the earlier ideas. Eventually, characteristics of the different approaches are often integrated into a newer and more encompassing approach.